Hey everyone, Jacob Gago here. Today I have the Thrustmaster TCA Boeing Yoke and the Honeycomb Alpha Yoke. These two yokes have actually been in the market for many years now, but believe it or not, they're still the best. The first flight simulator I started on was '98 and I was a lot younger. Now it's 2024, I want to get back into it. Now that I also have a stronger computer, which you could check out here, these two yokes are the ones that I came down to, and this video is supposed to address the comparisons between the two and which one would be the best for you, and I'll tell you guys at the end of this video the one I picked. Before we go on further, I would say hands down these two yokes are marvelous, and it really comes down to what you're going to be using it for, which is a perfect segue into what the purpose of these yokes are. The TCA Boeing Yoke is more for people who want to be flying like commercial airlines. That's like the A320s, 737, 747, and whatnot. And when it comes to the Honeycomb Alpha, those are known as general aviation. So those are going to be like smaller airplanes like Cessnas and also like jets. So now let's talk about the build quality. When it comes to the Alpha Yoke, I would say the build quality on this is hands down premium. It is also plastic, but it's a tougher type of high-end plastic. The Honeycomb Alpha comes with a red LED light, which has 5 different brightness settings in case you thought it was too bright or too low. To attach it to the desk, it also comes with clamps. One of the biggest selling points with this Honeycomb Alpha is also the ability to turn a whole 180 degrees. When I was first getting into flying, I thought this feature would be like, oh my God, a no-brainer to have, but after flying for a while, I could already see that if you're doing 180 degrees like that, you're more likely not flying correctly. And the overall size of this is pretty decent. It doesn't take too much desk space. The Thrustmaster's build quality is a lot more plastic, and you could 100% tell by just looking at it. However, inside the yoke itself, it does have a 100% metal frame, which gives it that more realistic feeling. It does not have LED lights, but there is a small Xbox indicator, which I'm sure will light up if you connect it to a Xbox. Just like the Honeycomb Alpha, it also has a clamp which attaches to the desk. The yoke's build quality, I would say when you're turning left and right, it does feel really good. However, when you're pushing in and pulling out, it does feel a little stiff. I wish it was a lot more smoother, but for some people they may like this, but for me, I'm not really so much of a fan of it. When it comes to the Thrustmaster, I would say the yoke feels really good left and right. When it first comes outside of the box, it comes with 3 springs, and it does feel too loose. However, as soon as you put that 4th spring in, it changes the game. Literally feels like the best thing ever. The Thrustmaster yoke does not turn a full 180 degrees like the Honeycomb Alpha, but it's really close. So I won't really say the Honeycomb Alpha's 180 degrees is a huge selling point, because the Thrustmaster could just as much do something similar. Now let's talk about the functionality of both yokes. Both of the yokes have a lot of buttons, which could also be assigned to whatever else you want, but the defaults are pretty good. Starting with the Alpha yoke, on the left, it has some directional buttons. So if you move it up, down, left, and right, it'll change some of the view settings. There's a white button right below, which I don't really use it for anything right now. And then right below that is also the trim buttons in Flight Simulator. Behind the yoke is another button. Microsoft Flight Simulator uses that as Smart Look, but I have heard of people changing that for ATC talking. Coming to the right of the yoke, there is a big red button there, and that could be like your autopilot if you wanted. Then there's a white button, which could be like switching between the cockpit view internally and external. And then you have more buttons there, which could be used for maybe other trim controls or whatever you want it to be. Do keep in mind that behind the yoke on the right side, there is no button there. Now coming to the dashboard of the Alpha yoke, if you look on the left side, you will see there's 9 switches there. The ones on the bottom are also for general aviation, but those could also be used for commercial airliners. Coming to the right side of the dashboard, this is more going to be for general aviation again. You will turn it like a key ignition. Behind the Alpha yoke, that's where you'll plug in the USB-C, and also to adjust the brightness of the LED lights. Coming to the Thrustmaster Boeing Yoke, it does have a little more buttons. Now do note, you'll see things like X, Y, the A's and the B's. That's because it's also compatible with Xbox. Coming to the left side, you have a button here, then you have trim controls also at your disposal. This button right here also could be adjusted to move around your views. Just like the Alpha yoke, there is a button behind the left side. On the right side of the yoke, I think this is one of my biggest selling points that I really enjoyed, is there's another jog wheel there, and with mine, currently it gives you like a free look. So that means I never have to touch my mouse. And then right beside that again, you have some more controls. So that could be additional trims or whatever else you want it to be. And on the far right, that could be something like your autopilot on or whatever button you want it to be. Unlike the Alpha yoke, on the right side of this Boeing yoke, it also has a button behind it. So you have more configuration options. In the middle of the yoke, you have 3 more additional buttons. The first one right now, it shows between the external view and internal view for my settings. The middle button, I have not set that to be anything. And then on the far right, that's like a menus button. Below the yoke, there is a throttle there. It is very much plastic. To the right of the unit, you could also change your landing gear options from the unit. A very nice option the yoke has is you could actually plug in a microphone jack headset, so you don't really have to go all the way to your computer. Behind the Thrustmaster, now it does have a little more options. It has the TFRP option, and this is going to be if you have those pedals, you could plug it in directly here. There's a switch to switch between PC and Xbox. Next to that, you have another USB connector. And then lastly, to connect this whole unit to the computer is the USB-C input. Really fast, we'll talk about compatibility. So I did mention that the Honeycomb Alpha is not going to be able to be used for Xbox. However, they did release an XPC version, which is supposed to be more for Xbox users, and also some additional improvements to the yoke. For the Thrustmaster Boeing Yoke, it's actually already made for Xbox users. So if you have an Xbox, you should probably lean more towards the Thrustmaster or get yourself the XPC if you could find one. Now let's talk about my experience flying with both of these yokes. Starting with the Alpha yoke, I would say if you're pitching up or down, it does feel very stiff. Some people may like this, but for me, I feel like it's a little bit too hard. I also noticed with the Alpha yoke, small movements actually make the airplane make big changes. Comparing this to the Boeing yoke, I will say it does require a little more, and the feel just feels just right. Also, a big huge benefit with this yoke is in case you thought it was too stiff or too light, you can also adjust the springs. But unfortunately with the Alpha, you cannot do that. When I am flying with the Honeycomb Alpha yoke, I feel like I wish I had my free look view. With this, it doesn't give me the ability to do that, so I am forced to use my mouse. Something I've been really liking about the Boeing yoke is you have the ability to put something like an iPad or a phone, so you could look at charts or something like track your flight. Unlike with the Alpha, you have to use maybe another stand or something else around. These two companies have really great products, but when it comes to support, I would lean more towards Thrustmaster to be there and more reliable. The Honeycomb guys, although have a really great product, support could be a little hard reaching them in case you needed something. In fact, they've had inventory issues, although at the Flight Sim Expo, they've told me that they're fixing a lot of that. I will still say that it would be hard to reach them in case something went wrong. With Thrustmaster, however, being more established, I would feel a lot more better if my unit broke, because I know that they will reply. Talking about pricing for these units, at the time of recording this, the Honeycomb Bravo is about $279. The XPC, I believe, is $350, so it's a lot more. However, this could easily be a $300 yoke. With the Thrustmaster Boeing yoke, it is $400, and that's only with the yoke. If you want to get the throttle, it's about $500. I do feel like this is overpriced, and I do wish the yoke was around $350, maybe $300, but I think $350 would have been the better sweet spot. So guys, what are my final thoughts? I'm sure you kind of saw where I was leaning more towards. I am picking the Thrustmaster, and I'm going to be taking back the Honeycomb. But if you fly more GA airplanes like the Cessnas and the jets and the smaller airplanes, then maybe the Honeycomb would be better for you. Also, if you probably wanted to fly smaller airplanes and get your license, maybe that it would be a little more closer to what you see. So maybe that is a good option. Now I can keep both of the yokes, but I kind of don't want to because I feel like the Honeycomb could have been made a little better. And maybe that's what the new XPC is supposed to be for, but getting your hands on it could be difficult by itself. So for now, I would just stick with the Thrustmaster Boeing yoke. And do let me know which yoke you decide to pick and why. Is it because you're flying mainly general aviation aircrafts or maybe commercial aircrafts? As always, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.